So let me explain these ingredients first. So this is the flour, right? Wheat flour, with the like protein content, like I talked about, like 12%, and it's very low in ash content. Okay, and so these are solids. So it's egg white powder, so egg white in powder form, and it's gluten powder, right? And then this is water, right? Water is 26% to the weight of flour, and this is a corn sweet, right? Corn sweet, and this is salt. In this case, like we increase the amount of corn sweet to like 1.5% to the weight of flour. I mean to the weight of flour, and then decrease the amount of like salt to 0.5. Like uh, combining these, like this is 2%, and this is 26%. That's 28% hydration ratio. All right, so we have. Uh, I'm sorry, I was wrong actually. So this is the recipe, exact recipe. Sorry, yeah, she wrote the exact recipes in the whiteboard. You know, so so the solids are total solids of like 4 kilograms, 4,000 grams, and water 1,060 grams, fancy 40 grams. So that's 1%, and salt that's 0.5%, and so I think the water is 20, 25, 25.5, 25.5. Like the total hydration is 27%, 27% to the weight of the flour, total solids. And so this is a noodle machine that we have, like this Richmond One machine. This is for this particular model is actually for the EU countries where CE mark, the safety standard CE mark is required, and so we're mixing up solid ingredients first in this mixer. This is a 10 kilogram mixer, and but like minimum batch is 4 kilograms, so we're doing 4 in this case. So making hydration noodle, like we also have to dissolve like all the liquid ingredients, right, and water, and so even though like they're in a powder form, like we have to dissolve them in water first, and then we add it to the flour, I mean solid ingredients, and the beauty of this machine is that like you can actually see how the dough is like being made, like like being mixed through this mixing lid, right? So it's like the water is like a liquid added, like, and then there are some small holes, right? Like through small holes, like the liquid is added like a little by little to the flour, right? And we don't want to add like a lot of water at once, because that would kind of just wet the noodles, like and then some of the parts of the dough is like more wet than the other parts. That's not like what we want, like in this mixing process. The purpose of this mixing process is just, well, hydrate the dough well, right? Hydrate the dough well, like good hydration of dough. So we want to add the liquid little by little to the flour, and we want to mix it at certain speed to have like good hydration. the dough. Oh. Yeah, so as I talked about like in the lecture, this is a low hydration ratio noodle we're talking about. Like, so this is 27% hydration ratio noodle. So as I said, like there's less water, right? Less hydration. Less hydration, like the longer we have to mix to have like good hydration on the dough, right? So that's why the mixing time for this type of dough is 15 minutes. 15 minutes, like it's the longest mixing time that we have for ramen noodles. It's 15 minutes. 15 minutes, like it's pretty long, pretty long. Um, so we don't, it's this kind of class, like just looking at something for 15 minutes, like that's just it's almost like torture, right? So like we don't want to do that. So luckily she yeah, prepared the dough like in advance. But like now, like Megumi is writing the noodle making process in the whiteboard for you guys to be able to like understand like the noodle making process better. So after this mixing, right? We're going to take the dough out, and we may or may not do like what we call like a resting process. So resting process, like you guys later see like in a minute. It's a So we put the dough in a plastic bag, right, and let it sit at room temperature, and that helps like degas the dough, right, and then kind of rest the dough in a way that like kind of develops like gluten structure inside the dough. It's basically better for the better texture. And after that, we process the dough through a set of rollers. So the number one process, like she's writing the board, is like on like rough dough sheet forming. And on the right hand side, like like she said, like she wrote like roller gap. So that's a roller gap that she's gonna set right for that process. So after the 4 minutes, right? 4 minutes of like mixing, right? Look at the condition of dough. And so there are some dough that are stuck like in braids and like the walls, right? So we want to like sort of like clean them. We'll clean them and mix them up like in the rest of the dough, right? Just for like kind of better hydration. It's like how powdery the dough is. It's very powdery, like so because the amount of water liquid is like we adding is like pretty small. It's very powdery. And we'll set that timer to 11 minutes, 11 more minutes, right? Then adding the rest of that water and mix it for 11 minutes, 11 more minutes. So the total mixing time is 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. So for medium hydration ratio noodles, like which is between like 31% and like maybe like around like 38%, that's mixing time like 10 minutes. At a high hydration noodles, the mixing time is just 5 minutes. Okay, so let's start doing the first sheeting process, like we call rough dough sheet forming, and the roller gap we want to set it to is just 1 millimeter. So it's very narrow roller gap that this dough, like kind of powdery dough, has to pass through to become like sheet of dough. So it's very dry. It's very dry. Like it's almost like a moist, it's like moisted, like kind of flour. And then you maybe like see that, you know, the color, right? Color is like kind of bit yellow, and this is because of the currency that we added, right? Currency, like inside the currency, you know, remember that it's the potassium carbonate that makes this color like yellow. And so she's feeding it to the roller, right? And the roller gap, he said, is just 1 millimeter. So that's really narrow. And so we're making like sheet of dough that's just 1 millimeter in thickness. So like to process like this type of like kind of dry dough into sheet of dough, like kind of requires a lot of like strong, a lot of pressure, right? And then like so it's very strong, and sort of like roller systems, roller big rollers, and then it's require like, you know, you need like rollers that are like kind of like sustained by kind of strong the gears, and like so that's why yeah, that's why like this type of ramen machine has like kind of bigger rollers or big rollers. So it's very going slow, but like, you know, we like to apply like really good pressure into the dough, and so we want to go slow in this sheeting process. And after that, after rough sheet, like still this sheet of dough is like still rough. It's very fragile. So we need to like make it firm, right? We need to make like have like really good little texture. So for that to happen, like we need to go through this like combining process. So combining process like kind of requires to like kind of like separate the dough into like two sheets, right? Two sheets of dough, and then compound them through rollers. So we're basically separating it into two sheets and then combining them through the rollers. And the roller gap now is 1.5 millimeter. That's the first. That's the first combining process. 1.5 millimeter. So like we are processing this dough, right? To separate this dough into one, and the sheet of dough that's like coming out like definitely has kind of smoother texture and definitely stronger kind of like noodle texture. And so remember like that first initial roller gap was like 1 millimeter, right? So each of these two sheets of dough like is supposed to be like 1 millimeter in width, I mean the thickness, and then we separate it, right? And then combining them, right? So 1 millimeter in thickness, each sheet is 1 millimeter width, thickness, and compounding them, right? It's like one, it's actually 1 plus 1, like 2 millimeter equivalent of dough is like actually going through the roller, right? And so that's, and then so 2 millimeter, and then we need to thin them, right? We need to thin them, reduce the thickness, and to so like kind of make it firm. And so we set the roller gap like 1.5 millimeter, which is about like 30% less from 2 millimeter thickness. So we don't want to drastically thin the noodles because the dough like because like it's gonna damage the like gluten structure inside dough. But we want to kind of gradually thin it, gradually pressure the dough. That's why we so like apply this rule, like kind of 30% reduction rule. So we reduce the thickness with 30% at each round of sheeting. And this is second combining process. So again, like we separate the dough into two sheets and then compound them through the roller, right? So each of these sheets is supposed to be 1.5 millimeter in thickness. It's 1.5 plus 1.5, that's 3, and 3 reduced by 30%. It's about like 2.1 millimeter, but like you just round it down to 2.0 to make it simple. So the roller gap set is 2 millimeter. So this type of noodles has so like very kind of has a like kind of special noodle texture, and I think because um, looking at like different types of noodles, pasta like Chinese noodles, other types like different types of noodles like udon, like other Japanese noodles. Well, I think like making noodles that are like this low in hydration is kind of unique, and well, I think this type of noodle texture is kind of some special. Um, and again, like it's very hard to like kind of describe like the noodle texture, but like when you bite into this type of noodles, like you sense like strong with this type of dough, and it's like maybe like we can say like describe it as firm, and when biting off the noodles, right, noodle strands, you have this may have this sensation that like noodle strands of like burst under your teeth, right? Um, so that's kind of something special, and then because that's something unique, maybe unique, to the ramen noodles. I think it's hard to find like this type of like noodle texture in well other types of noodles, and well of course like making this type of noodles well is hard. You know, as I talked about, like it's just dry and it requires a lot of power, like strength, kind of like roll like size of rolls, and so it's you have to like apply a lot of pressure, and then because of like resistance like dough, it has to sustain the strong resistance, right? So it's so I think it's very unique to ramen noodles, like this type of low hydration noodles. And so applying this 30% rule, injection rule, so every round of sheeting, she's reducing the roller gap by 30%. That was 1.5 millimeter, and then this time around, like she set the roller gap to like 1 millimeter. So next round of sheeting, like it's gonna cut it. So cut it into noodle strands. And that's the speed, roll speed. You can adjust that with that knob volume. So cutting this low hydration noodle, like we use this type of like slider cutter that we talked about in the lecture. And again, like for this type of noodles, there's a range, right? There's a range of noodle sizes. So again, like we talked about, like this type of cutter determines the width, right? Width of the noodles, and thickness of noodles is determined by the roller gap, right? Roller gap in the machine. So this width is fixed, right? Depending on which cutter you're gonna use. And low hydration noodles, fish like tonkotsu type noodles. Number 28 is probably the thinnest, smallest. But this is 1.1 millimeter, right? This is 1.2, 1.3, 24, 1. I mean, 22, 1.4. So, but like for tonkotsu style noodle, like maybe it's a range of like maybe like 24 and 20 up to like 28. Okay, so she's measuring the thickness of the dough, right? And it's actually 1.6 millimeter in thickness, the actual thickness, even though she set the roll gap to like 1 millimeter. So there's a difference of 0.6 between the roll gap she set and actual thickness of the dough. Because like dough is like always bounces back right after it's gone through the roller gap. So it's always bigger than the roller gap she set, right? So we have to look out for that, and we have to like kind of adjust the roller gap according to the difference and according to the final thickness we want on our noodles. So she set the roller gap to this is like 0.4, right? And 0.4 millimeter. And so, we expect the final thickness to expand back by 0.6, right? So the final thickness we expect is 1.0 because there's a difference 0.6, right? So we expect the noodle thickness to bounce back by 0.6. So if you set the roll gap to like 0.4, final thickness should end up like being like 1.0, right? So she set the raw cutter number 26, which is a 1.2 millimeter width. So we should be able to like expect that final noodle size to be 1.0 millimeter in like thickness and 1.2 millimeter in width. Okay, that's the final thickness that we expected. Setting conveyor, and that's the automatic duster. If you want to dust on your noodles, then to keep them from sticking, then yeah, you should use that duster. Okay, so she's cutting it, and so I want to talk about like the portion size of this type of noodles, especially for this type of noodles. Like, so the portion size of this type of noodle is it's very small on purpose, and in this machine, like you can adjust the portion size by changing the length, of the noodles, and it's very easy to like change the length of noodles. You can make it longer to have like bigger portion size, and then you can make it shorter to have smaller portion size. And a lot of tonkotsu specialty ramen shops serve kind of small portion size on purpose for these type of noodles, because as I talked about, this type of noodle is very thin, right? So being thin gets soft fast in hot soup, right? It's soft fast in hot soup. So the time period, like customers can enjoy the al dente of like condition, al dente noodle texture, is very short. So if the customer cannot finish within that time frame, right, then the noodles like lose the noodle texture, right? So the ramen shops like serves these type of noodle like in small portion, like, on purpose for the customers to enjoy and to finish the noodles within that time frame, right? And they encourage the customer to order additional portions of noodles for the customers to be able to enjoy this like noodle texture and optimal noodle texture. So that's why they make the portion size small on purpose. So the typical portion size would be like 100 grams, around 100 grams, like fresh noodle weight. All right, so that's how you can make like tonkotsu low hydration noodles from scratch. Okay, and so she made some other variations, right, beforehand, and so I talked about like a bit about like some low hydration noodles used for kind of Hokkaido kind of regional ramen noodles, and then being like a bit thicker and curly, right? Like Asahikawa, Hakodate sort of ramen noodle, regional ramen noodle dishes, right? So you can have like low hydration noodles that are curly too, and they're different. And then this is a kind of a bit bigger, like big smaller size, like hydration noodles. And you know, you could be amazed like what difference that like just changing the noodle size by like 0.1 millimeter make. Yeah, so even like within the same ramen special noodle tonkotsu ramen specialty shop, like kind of chain, right? Even within the same chain, they have like variations in terms of like noodle size, like between like 24, 28. So this kind of like she put that this kind of silicone plate parts right on the back of the cutter, right? And then these plates kind of make the noodles stuck, like they were trying to get out, right? And then being stuck in there, then the next portion of the noodles like kind of try to come out, and then that noodles that are stuck in there like kind of pushed out, and that's how the noodles get curly. So that's how she made these noodles. Okay, once made, how long do you keep them in the fridge? They're losing property. So we can keep them like in the fridge like for 1 week and to 2 weeks. But like over time, like noodles like change, in terms like kind of quality, and then well, of course like noodles like lose a bit of like moisture over time, and the color becomes like a bit translucent, and then because like they lose moisture, right? Then like that means that like the hydration is um, dropping, right? So the texture wise, that like noodle becomes like kind of a bit harder too. But it's a lot of ramen shops actually keep the noodles in the fridge before they sell them, like for a few days before they sell them to the customer, because the quality, like noodle texture wise, it's better. It's better. So yeah. Okay. So why don't we move to our kitchen, right? Let's move to our kitchen and then see if we can show you guys some more of the what we have for this class. And yeah, so like we need to move to a different room. Okay, so this is our showroom where we have like different noodle machines, and this is our kitchen. Yeah, so this is a kitchen, and this is where like we like do our like school, ramen school, like udon school, and this is our like headquarters in Kagawa, and then we have like exact same facility in Tokyo office, and because of situation with like COVID-19, it's very hard like for us like conduct any like schools here, but like let me explain like some of the equipment we have. So we have like all these like induction cookers, right? These are like pretty serious induction cookers that you can do with for it's like production like kind of like emulsified stocks, like like very thick tonkotsu stocks that require a lot of like strong heat, and then as you can see, like there are like 10 of them. So each induction cooker, maybe like cooking like different ingredients in the big pots, right? And so each of them like cooking different ingredients, like whole chicken, and then chicken carcass, like, and then another one like making like maybe pork backbone, and then you're gonna make like light version, like thick version. So each student can taste how each ingredient tastes, right? And you're gonna have like tons of different types like tare, sausage, like like flavored oils, different things. So it's yeah, it's like a lab, like where you can play around with like a lot of different like components to reach your final recipes. And so it's a like for certain people, like it's a very fun place to yeah, like play around and like kind of complete read your recipe. So and then you're gonna have like 7 other students maximum to work with, right? So well, each of them like has like maybe like has different backgrounds, right? And then some of them are actually like professional ramen chefs, like who have like operated their restaurants for like over 10 years, and they know like so you can share your recipes, like know-hows, like cooking techniques as well. So it's like it's very yes, stimulating, 6 7 days the course, and then um, yeah, and we hope that like we'll be able like and restart our courses like pretty soon in a few months. But like we also like been preparing is like e-learning courses, like online courses that we're hoping to be able like substitute like some of the curriculum that we have like in our real courses. And then we hope to be able like kind of launch them in a few months. So for those of you who are interested, please let us know so that we can keep you guys updated. Right. So one thing we talked about in the kitchen is that like so cooking noodles like is very important, right? So we have a cooker over here, and um, so ramen noodles, like when you're cooking ramen noodles, like we cook the noodles portion by portion, and then of course we are gonna have to have a timer, right? And then I I talked about like temperature, cooking temperature, right? Should be like 98 degrees Celsius, and it has to be like this condition, like rolling boiling, right? And right, and then like so before you add like put noodles in there, has to be rolling boiling, right? And and so and also like I talked about the water, so like it being like getting dirty, right? Like the consistency, so like pH level, like cooking water is like kind of increasing, right, over time, like as you cook more noodles in it. So you have to have this faucet, right, running the clean water in, right, running clean water in. And then as you maybe like notice, right, like you can't read Japanese, but like it says like soft water. So this faucet runs soft water, right? Remember the soft water like being important when cooking noodles, right? Um, so we run soft water into it, right? Little by little to sort of like keep the boiling going, right? So little by little, like just sort of like supplying the salt water in it, but like keep the heat going, right? The boiling, and then as we cook, right, more noodles, and then the cooking water like overflows, right, and then gets drained through the drainage hole, right? So you kind of replenishing the water like a little by little to keep it clean, and then so like kind of maintaining like pH level. But like after like if it's busy, right? If it's busy, right? Like we have to like cook the 20 portions of the noodles like in like in a matter of like 10 minutes, like 20 minutes, and so the speed of like um, pH level like going up is like pretty fast, right? So, and then so you may have to sort of like change the whole cooking water like when after like when it's like when it's not that busy, right? Like when the lunch rush is over something. So like you have to dump all the water and then like start fresh, right? Um, so but like anyway, so this is sort of like ideal, um, kind of simpler, but like simpler like noodle cooker for ramen noodles. So you should have like some uh, faucet like running some water going in, right? Supplying this some water in it, and then like drainage, right? So that you sort of like kind of like maintaining the water pH level like at like light alkaline, um, like 9 or around 9. Um, so something like yeah, you should have in mind like and then soft water. Okay, and so so like what's we drink like so low hydration noodles, and then typically they used. I mean they're coupled with traditionally right. Traditionally like they're coupled with like tonkotsu was like thick tonkotsu soup, right? And but what's been trending, right? What's been trending is that like they a lot of ramen shops like they're serving like really good shoyu soup, like shoyu ramen, soy sauce ramen noodles are using like low hydration noodles, and they go well with low hydration noodles. Well, depending on like of course like what kind of like shoyu soup that you're serving, but that's a trend. And then like I've seen like ramen shops that serve like low hydration noodles in like light chicken broth as well, and they're pretty good too. So let's see the how to cook noodles, and the the reason, right? The reason that we should start the noodles as fast as you put it in there is that like cause of like because the temperature of noodles is like much lower than the cooking water, right? So we should kind of start the noodles, right? And to sort of like kind of like spread the heat, spread like kind of like in a temperature like low temperature of the noodles like around in the cooking water, so that like each noodle strands like so like gets like equal amount of like heat from the cooking water like as fast as they can, right? Um, so that like and then the noodles like are like kind of tend to stick together. So we should as soon as we put in there like we should like spread them around, um, kind of store them well. And the cooking time is also important for this type of noodle. And well, tonkotsu specialty ramen shops actually well allow customers to well order order like they have like an order option that like that they can choose like how the noodles uh, being cooked, right? So um, so this type of noodles they probably cook like you can choose like from 10 seconds of cooking to like probably up to 1 minute, right? And then okay, um, sorry, it's so how it's served, right? It's like ramen, boiled ramen. It's like always soup first, and then noodles. If you put noodles first in the bowl, and the noodles get just stuck, right? And after you put the soup in, and then noodles, um, the noodles get coated with the soup and the oil, so that noodles don't get stick together. And then make sure like you sort of lift it up, and then like sort of kind of like kind of let them swim around like to like get coated with soup and oil, and then you add the toppings. Yeah, toppings typical like pork chashu, like sliced pork meat, like braised pork meat, and like um, shreds like cloudier, like types like kind of mushrooms, and then half-boiled egg, and some some like condiments like well chopped like scallions and the shredded leeks in the center, and chopped up scallions on the side, and of course like roasted sesame like kind of sprinkled around. So this is just kind of very typical okay, got some questions. Regarding tonkotsu, do you advise washing the bones and replacing the water after first boil, or removing the scums is enough? Yes, so we actually talked about this type of like techniques like in our ramen soup books, but like yeah, basically, so we wash the bones, right? We wash the bones like cause sort of like but like lightly wash the bones just to remove like kind of some of the blood of the bones, right? But like want to make sure that like we keep um, the marrow and like kind of yeah. But we don't we just wash them like lightly, right? And then um, but we don't. So we just start boiling, right? We just start boiling, and then the bones and the water, right? Bones of water, just bones of water, and then the ratio of the bone to water is like 1 to 2, and then they start skimming the scum, right? And yeah, so like just keep it skimming scum, and then like we don't throw away the water after we remove the scum, but we just keep them like just keep boiling until it reaches the certain density, and so that's how we cook the tonkotsu soup. And um, another question from Sean. They must sell the noodle boiler and then low induction burners too. Currently, we don't. Depending on where you are, like currently, like we don't have any noodle cooker and low induction burner. But like depending on where you are, we maybe like refer you to like some of the suppliers that carry something you're looking for. So yeah, feel free to ask us. Okay. If you're serving 150 customers a day, would you recommend that sidebar noodle machine? Um, yeah, sure. Like 150 customers a day. Well, assuming the 150 servings of noodles a day, then yeah, which you may want like we just did that demo. Yes, so that'd be like sufficient. Yes, I would say. So the soy sauce version, right? So the version is like so this is the base is chicken, right? So and then so typically like that change the toppings to the chicken chashu, like a low temperature cooked chicken chashu. You could do it like in a so big too, and maybe like chicken breast, right? Breast is usually the parts like cuts that they usually use, and then boiled spinach, right? And some like fish cake, and again like shredded like um, leeks, right? On the inner center. So again, like chopped up scallions, and then roasted sesame. So these are just the basic sort of very basic presentation, like plating. But so basically, like, we be seeing like more and more um, ramen shops we're seeing are using like low hydration ratio noodles on like in this will couple with kind of light soy sauce soup or like light chicken kind of like salt based soup. So it's very interesting. Like that has been like sort of like trending, and so it's yeah. So low hydration noodles is very actually like in terms of like kind of um, noodle making techniques, noodle making operations. It's very easy to make them if you have the right equipment, if you have the right ingredients.